The story opens up as our protagonist, Eleanor Shellstrop, awakens in a room facing a sign saying everything is fine. She is soon called into an office by the celestial being, Michael, who confirms that Eleanor is dead, and that she is in the heavenly afterlife called the Good Place. Michael gives her a tour throughout the Good Place neighborhood she'll be residing in before getting her to meet with newcomers and watch an informational video. In the video, Michael explains that every action humans make in their lives is assigned either a positive or negative points total depending on their choices and actions. The quantity of these points are proportional to how good or bad the choice or action was. After a person dies, their total points are tallied by accountants, and only people with very high scores are allowed into the Good Place. Eleanor earned her spot for her work as a lawyer that defended innocent people on death row and championed for human rights. Also, she learns every person in the Good Place has a soulmate, a person with which they are to spend their eternal life together. After presenting Eleanor with a house, Michael introduces her to her soulmate, Chidi Anaganai, a Senegalese ethics and philosophy professor. When Michael leaves, Eleanor reveals to Chidi that everything Michael said about her life is wrong and she's not the person he says she is. Eleanor made a living by knowingly selling fake medicine to the sick and elderly. Michael then introduces Eleanor and Chidi to Tahani Al-Jamal, a wealthy British socialite who earned her spot for her extensive charity work, and her soulmate Jayani Ulai, a Buddhist monk who is still keeping to his vow of silence. She is also introduced to Janet, an AI mainframe construct who runs the neighborhood, appears out of thin air behind anyone who calls her name, possesses all the knowledge in the universe, and can give a resident any physical thing they desire. While at a party hosted by Tahani and Jayaniu at their mansion, Chidi begins to question whether he should help Eleanor or not. He takes her back home, and despite her general behavior, Eleanor expresses appreciation for Chidi and acknowledges that he's a kind person. The next morning, Eleanor wakes up to discover that many things that represent her crass comments about her life and her insults to Tahani at the party have taken on a physical form and are wreaking havoc on the neighborhood. Eleanor begs Chidi to help her become a better person just as Michael knocks on the door to inform them of an emergency meeting. Eleanor avoids suspicion in the aftermath of the chaos, and Michael fears he has failed in his first big project. Tahani organizes a cleanup day, but anyone who volunteers will miss out on the opportunity to learn how to fly. Chidi agrees to teach Eleanor how to be a good person, and his first assignment requires her to volunteer in the garbage cleanup. She begrudgingly agrees to it and starts helping out, but when she hears how amazing flying is, she hides the trash to go join everyone else, causing a trash storm to occur. As a result, Chidi loses faith in her. It turns out this was a regular occurrence in Eleanor's life, where she habitually shirked the responsibility of acting as a designated driver for her drinking buddies. That night, Eleanor feels guilty and cleans up the whole neighborhood herself. Upon seeing this, Chidi agrees to continue to help her. A note is slipped under Eleanor's door, saying that she doesn't belong in the Good Place. Realizing someone else knows her secret, she panics. Eleanor suspects Tahani may have written the note telling her she doesn't belong in the Good Place, especially because she's annoyed by Tahani's condescending and haughty attitude. She is determined to prove Tahani has some dark secret, and believes she isn't as good as she appears to be. This attitude is a holdover from a belief she held in her life that everyone was out for themselves, and had some ulterior motive, which she expressed once to her then-boyfriend Sam. Sam was a kind and understanding person who always made a conscious effort to be good. But Eleanor believed that being good was pointless, and too much work in a world full of bad things and bad people. Sam nevertheless believed that the effort itself was still important. This difference in philosophies later led to them breaking up. Ultimately, Eleanor accepts that Tahani is genuinely good, and begins to form a real friendship with her, comforting her over her dissatisfaction with Jayaniu's continued vow of silence. Michael tries to get Chidi to take up a hobby, but Chidi only wants to work on his book about ethics. It's 3,600 pages long, and Michael gave up halfway through trying to read it, calling it convoluted, messy, and confusing. He agrees to become Chidi's advisor. Janet cycles through a series of bizarre personalities, and spouts off strange fun facts as she's being reprogrammed to act more human. Michael recruits Eleanor to help investigate the problems in the neighborhoods. Later that night, Eleanor gets another letter from the person who knows her secret, telling her to meet with them in a secluded area in the neighborhood. Jayaniu is revealed to be the one who wrote the note. Breaking his vow of silence, he confronts Eleanor by revealing that he knows she doesn't belong there, and that he doesn't belong in the Good Place either. Jayaniu reveals to Eleanor that, like her, he's not who Michael thinks he is. Rather than a Taiwanese monk, he's really an amateur DJ and drug dealer from Florida. His real name is Jason Mendoza, who went along with Michael mistaking him as a silent Buddhist monk in order to avoid detection. This supposed meditation room, which Tahani is not allowed to enter, is in fact a butthole, a man cave room full of posters of his favorite musicians, a large TV, and a video games machine. Alina and Chitty try to persuade Jason not to reveal his true identity. Meanwhile, Tahani is given the task of organizing the gala opening of a new restaurant, The Good Plates, at which each diner is served their favorite meal. The opening goes wrong when Michael asks the diners to tell the story of what their meal means to them. Tiring of the masquerade, Jason decides he's going to tell the truth, forcing Alina to stop him by creating a diversion. She punches a hole through an elaborate celebration cake, which causes a sinkhole to open up in the floor. The restaurant is evacuated, and Alina and Jason's secrets are safe for the time being. However, when Tahani later visits the sinkhole, it turns out to be growing. Alina orders frozen yogurt. Because Michael feels guilty about the sinkhole, there are a lot of new flavors, many based on concepts. Alina, instead of holding up the line while trying to make a decision, allows the person behind her, Gunnar, to order first. She is so excited by the fact that she did something selfless, that she immediately runs back to her house to tell Chitty about it. He congratulates her but asks if she brought the yogurt like she said she would. After briefly trying to back out and make excuses, she realizes that a good person would follow through, and heads to the shop again. Jason has agreed to join Alina in learning ethics to become a better person. Chitty is teaching a lesson about utilitarianism, and Jason recounts the time he framed his friend Donkey Doug's girlfriend for theft so that she wouldn't marry and move away with Donkey Doug, who was the best pop and locker on their 60-strong dance crew. He then asks if he can leave to attend Tahani's brunch before the miniature waffles run out. Chitty excuses him, and Alina asks if they can jump into a new lesson. Chitty says he's tired from standing and wants a break, so Alina asks if he will grade her paper instead. He agrees begrudgingly. At Tahani's brunch, she and Michael are chatting when Janet appears and alerts Michael that they have a Category 55 emergency doomsday crisis. Michael asks if Tahani can take them to a private room. Once there, Janet reveals that the sinkhole is not repairing itself, but growing. Tahani overhears this and tells Michael she actually saw it get bigger last night. Michael tries to play off his anxiety and leaves. Back at Alina's house, Chitty is trying to politely get time to himself, without Alina tagging along. However, Alina insists he's hiding something. A holographic screen used by Michael and Janet while discussing the emergency is left open in the room, and Michael tells Tahani not to look through it. She ignores this and tries to check a list of point rankings in the neighborhood, which leaves her dismayed to find she is second to last. Being second best always was a difficult thing for Tahani. Throughout her childhood, she was always treated like this by her parents, who favored her younger sister Kamala. Alina keeps pestering Chitty until he finally breaks and tells her that she is the thing that has been bothering him. He doesn't want a full-time job and wants to be doing paradise things like rowing out on a lake with a bottle of wine and some French poetry. They get so fed up with one another that Alina tells him to leave. Just as they make this decision, Michael appears with a neighborhood warning that it's too dangerous to go outside. It has been several days since the lock-in began, and Alina and Chitty are still squabbling. In the middle of it, Michael interrupts and introduces a new couple, Bart and Nina, an agent and a marriage counselor, who need a place to stay until the sinkhole is repaired. He volunteers Alina's because she's his assistant. In Tahani's mansion, she announces they have a full day of activities planned, leading one woman to comment on how good Tahani is. Tahani agrees, but upon checking her point total learns that nothing's changed. One time, back when she was alive, Tahani hosted a fundraising event, which was only at £5.2 million earned. Her parents insist it's time to bring out something new, and Tahani introduces Kamala to auction off a lunch date with. The bidding starts at £3 million. And the entire crowd immediately raises their cards, including her parents. Though odd, this was most likely just a strategy to get others to keep piling on the bid. Bart and Nina put Alina and Chitty on edge when they reveal they were experts on catching falsehoods and giving relationship advice, respectively. They go into another room to argue but are seen by Bart and Nina, who then decide to help the couple. Bart discerns that Chitty has a secret. Tahani meets Michael and Janet out by the sinkhole, offering them some donut holes until the negative side effects of a human getting too close to it start to change her. Janet knocks her out before too much harm can be done. After Bart and Nina's prodding, Chitty reveals he's never had a serious relationship before, which is why he's so tense. Bart offers him a massage, but Alina and Chitty turn it down and go to bed. Tahani has recovered from the sinkhole, and Michael wants to know why she did something so stupid in the first place. She thinks back to the time after her parents died, where, during the reading of her parents' last will and testament, they misspelled her name as Tahini. Frustrated, Tahani says Kamala can have everything. She will strike out on her own. In the present day, Tahani confides that the source of her insecurity is that she ranked so low on the point evaluation. Michael reassures her that she belongs in the good place, making her better than all the others who weren't good enough, and Janet lets them know that the sinkhole is fixed. With the lock-in lifted, Eleanor has left a note for Chitty to go to the lake. Eleanor tells Chitty she understands that helping her is not easy, and gives him a card that reads "Fork off" Eleanor for him to use whenever he is overburdened. She apologizes for the tricky situation she has put them in, and gives him a basket of wine and a French poetry book. Chitty gets into a boat and Eleanor pushes him off into the lake. Once in the middle of the lake, Chitty says he has no idea what he's doing, and that it was a theoretical fantasy, before panically asking how to row a boat. Eleanor walks up to Michael, who is showing the residents that the sinkhole is fully repaired and saying that he figured it all out. After the crowd disperses, Michael tells Eleanor that he has no idea how this happened, which is bad news. He resolves to figure it out, with her help, first thing in the morning. Eleanor has promised to help Michael figure out what's responsible for the neighborhood's problems, and she's anxious since she knows it's her. But she promised to help, and Chitty reminds her of the importance of following through on promises. He teaches her about contractualism, the need to make and stick to agreements. It's a tall order for Eleanor, as throughout her life, she failed to keep promises she had made. Eleanor comes to Michael's office. He looks unkempt, unshaven, and his tie is disarranged. It seems like he's obsessed with the neighborhood problem. He also spends some time apologizing for the tension in his office that she can't see, since she can't see 9 dimensions. He even has to sweep tension off the chair that Eleanor sits in. Michael says he had studied the human idea of friends and thinks he could use a friend. Eleanor says she's that person, because she promised to help him. At Tahani and Jason's house, Jason is still acting like Jian-Yu. She suggests that the two of them visit a couple's spa in the neighborhood to build up their relationship, or at least to talk. Small talk, big talk, anything. Jason hurries to ask Chitty for advice, knowing that talking honestly to Tahani would be too much. He wants Chitty to come with them. Chitty is indecisive. He doesn't want to come as he'd be a third wheel in a couple's setting. But maybe he has an obligation to help Tahani. He'd debate himself forever, but Tahani interrupts them, and he has to make a choice. He'll come with them. Tahani, Jason, and Chitty arrive at the Good Face Spa, where Janet takes some explaining to accept Chitty being the third part of Tahani and Jason's couple. Chitty takes some time to try to convince Jason to step up and interact with Tahani. At the spa, Tahani suggests Janet give her a massage, and for Jason to talk about himself. This gets Jason uncomfortable, so Chitty suggests an alternative. Janet massages Tahani and Chitty massages Jian-Yu. They start that, Tahani asking Jason to talk about anything, but gets nothing comprehensible from him. It's night, and Tahani is waiting, alone, at a table in the Tea for Two Couples cafe. Chitty comes to her and asks if that is where she really wants to be. She says she's resigned to being alone. She and Jian-Yu have nothing in common. She has no soulmate. As they talk, it does look like Chitty and Tahani do have a lot in common, and are interested in the same things in art, for instance. The next day, Eleanor comes to Michael's office, where he has big news. The neighborhood's chaos can't be from the architecture. It must be due to one of the people in it. Michael's ready to celebrate, but Eleanor is filled with dread. She knows it's her. Jason is back at his room, playing video games, when Chitty comes in. Jason has the best gift ever for Tahani, a portrait of Frank Caliendo, the best impressionist of all time. He tells Janet to call a neighborhood meeting, of the moribund and devastating sort. At Jason and Tahani's house, Chitty is there as Jason offers her his gift, a much better one than he had earlier, a painting of 3 ballerinas who all look like Tahani, in the impressionist style. Tahani exclaims that, although he doesn't say things, only her true soulmate would give such a perfect gift. As she hugs him, Jason and Chitty trade thumbs up. Clearly Chitty gave Jason good advice. The neighborhood assembles for the meeting, and Eleanor tells Chitty she did as she promised. Then Michael starts the meeting, and says he's found the cause of the neighborhood's problems, himself, so he will leave them forever. Eleanor considers Michael's belief that he is the neighborhood's problem, and thus should abandon his experiment. This is a win-win situation, as Michael will get the retirement he so rightly deserves and needs, and she will no longer feel the stress of getting caught by him as the true cause of the neighborhood's problems. Chitty, on the other hand, disagrees, as Eleanor's reasoning is built on a lie. Eleanor concedes that she has to reconsider Michael's move after they all learn what retirement for a being like Michael means. It is called the Eternal Shriek, which is a series of excruciating events. Eleanor comes up with another solution to the resulting problem, which would require a sacrifice. Chitty is conflicted by Eleanor's solution, as he vowed to help her, but still feels the sacrifice is morally wrong despite it not hurting anyone. Through the process, Chitty remembers back to a lie he told on Earth. That lie consumed his inner soul as wrong despite, much like the sacrifice, its negative impacts were somewhat minuscule in the grand scope of life, and which conversely made its recipient happy. Michael is in a quandary concerning what to do about Alina ever since she admitted that she is a fraud, and is in the good place by mistake. What makes the situation even worse for him is that no one in his position in the good place has ever had to deal with such an error. Since Janet is still rebooting her system, he can't yet get access to Alina's file. So, he decides to have an interview with who seem to be her closest friends in the neighborhood, Tahani, Jianyu, and most specifically Chitty. Those latter three interviews may cause even more problems for especially Jianyu. And Chitty, as Alina learns and passes along to her friends, that Michael has a lie detecting machine, meaning that Jianyu also may be exposed as a fraud, and Chitty identified as the person who created problems in Janet's system. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.